Welcome to the Matty Johns Podcast. Again for this week, getting closer to September, people. Paul Kent, Brett Finch, gentlemen, good to see your smiling faces again.
Matty.
How you
How you feeling, Kenny?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. I'm glad you're the first bloke that's asked me how I'm going.
How are you, Kenty?
Mate, I nearly died, man.
Yeah.
I had man flu, so it was pretty bad.
Nothing to be snoozed at.
No.
Look, like to tip people onto some things. We've done movies, but a couple of podcasts worth a crack. Firstly, Business Wars. Same from Wondering, same people who do Sports Wars. It goes into the battle of big corporations. Nike versus Adidas, McDonald's versus Burger King, Nintendo versus PlayStation. And there's some you look at, I wouldn't be interested, but sometimes the origins of these companies are so interesting, like Nintendo. For instance, Nintendo was originally a playing card company. That's all they dealt in. And early 20th century or into about the 30s and 40s in Japan, the reason why it was such big business, playing cards, was that there were illegal betting houses run by the Yakuza in every town and city right across Japan. And in the illegal betting houses, they do a hand, and basically at the end of every game, they get a new deck out. So Nintendo were the ones used to supply the playing cards. So you can understand if every betting house is going through 1,000 decks of playing cards, that's pretty big business. The other podcast worth a listen at the moment is Rabbitohs Radio Podcast. Just come out. Grant Chappell, Steve Maven, and Darren Brown.
Brownie.
Mate, Brownie and Steve Maven, those blokes have lived a life. And so, if you're a Rabbitohs fan, of course, listen. But if you're a rugby league fan and just like a good yarn, it's a really good one to have a listen.
Does Maven ever tell the story about the 87 game against the Raiders?
I dare say he would. He did it on the on Vossie's show, The Fan, the other day.
They reckon by half-time he was sitting at the Cauliflower Hotel.
Yep.
Through Alexandria there.
Yeah. He got replaced halfway through the first half and just walked straight through the dressing room, picked up his bag on the way through and drove straight to the Cauliflower Hotel.
What's the second half there?
Yeah.
That's golf.
With his mates.
They just terrorised him. It's when those days you're having a bad day.
Oh, I've had a few of them.
He was
I'm sure probably your coaches would have been. I did that.
You go home to the wife or girlfriend. How was your day? Bad day. 4 try assists in the first half for them. Coming up on the podcast next week, I go one-on-one with Cameron Smith. It's a lot of fun. And, guys, if I'm looking a little bit weary, in a few weeks' time, I go one-on-one with Liverpool legend and inventor Craig Johnston. I've just done the podcast then, 2.5 hours going through Jono's life.
Amazing.
It's up, mate. What a life. Unbelievable. Now, let's get into the footy. Firstly, gentlemen, every team takes their turn at being slung over the whipping post this year, and it's been the Dragons' turn, rightfully so, in the last week. A couple of things to hit hard here. Firstly, Ben Hunt and Westgate. It amazes me, this one, with Dragons' season on a knife's edge. Paul McGregor has gone there, reportedly offered him a week off if he's feeling tired, and Ben has taken it. Now, this amazes me on two fronts, but before I get into that, fellas, a quick summation on your thoughts.
Oh, look, Paul McGregor rolled the dice and came up snake eyes, to be honest. Look, let's remember, this time last year he was criticised for not resting the Dragons players out of Origin.
Yep.
And they went through a flat spot, and everybody said, you've got to rest your gun players, get them right for the finals again. They weren't too far away last year. They got beaten the second week of the finals last year. So
belted the Broncos week 1.
You belted the Broncos. So anyway, he got criticised last year. So this year he's lightened the load a lot in his players so they don't get this second or third, I suppose, fatigue during the season. The other part that he did then was he sat down with Hunt and actually said to him, do you need a rest? What's wrong? Because he looked physically tired. Last year was mentally. This year was physically. So he thought, okay, I'll give you a week off. Now, if they win and Hunt comes back this week fully refreshed, ready to go. Genius. But unfortunately, it's a game of wins and losses.
But Craig Bellamy often said that he would go, at the end of the Origin period, he'd go to Cam Smith 2 or 3 times in the run towards the finals and say, mate, I'm going to give you the week off. I'm going to rest you. He'd say to him, mate, don't rest me from the game. The game's fun. I won't train all week.
Yeah.
That's where he takes
That's where
his
he
rest.
changed. Yeah. I think early on when all those boys, he had big chunks of players in Origin, he'd rest them. And the boys said, we don't want that. Just give us a week off training. Playing Sunday's good.
That's right. That's the fun part. It amazes me, Finch, for 2 reasons here. Firstly, is the fact that, mate, I love playing the games. And I know some weeks it can be a drag and it'd be tough. But I love playing. I love the sense of satisfaction. I love the camaraderie. And if I missed a game, I felt like I was friendless. Yeah. But I'll give you the big reason why I never used to like missing games and I would never let myself be rested, is the fact that, mate, I would never want to give any an opportunity to take my jersey, take my spot in the team, take my career.
Yeah.
And, mate, the lengths I went to, I tore my quad once, Kenty, and they said, there's no way you can play. And Malcolm really said, mate, you can't play. I said, I'll get through a fitness test. I went and saw a doctor, got a painkilling injection, passed the fitness test, being stupid, and then tore my quad completely off the bone in the game. But that was the lengths I went to ensure that I kept my number 6 jersey.
I was similar, Matty, and I remembered how I got my first start. Laurie Daly was in the Origin, so I got an opportunity because someone was rested or had to be rested from rep duties. And I think for me, I was never the greatest player, but I always felt within the team I was in, whether I was good or bad, teammates knew that I was out there every week trying my best. And I was very lucky with injury. I think I missed maybe 10 games in 15 years through injury, so I was quite durable in that respect. But in the end, that's what I relied on, boys. It might be good, it might be bad, but you knew I was there.
You're going to play.
And I'm going to answer the bell,
In America, they call it the Wally Pipp theory. Wally Pipp was first baseman for the New York Yankees. And baseball, anybody knows that back in Wally Pipp's day, they played 154 games through the year. Now, I think it's 162 games during the season. And it's not uncommon in baseball for a player, because they play so many games, to say to the manager that day, can I just sit out today? I'm just a bit fatigued. I'm a bit down. I haven't slept well last night. Just sit me out. And so it's quite common for that to happen over the course of a season. Wally Pipp, first baseman for the New York Yankees, walks up to his manager one day and says, I've got a bit of a headache. Can I just sit this one out today? He said, sure. He said, look, go get this guy. He goes and gets the new first baseman, Lou Gehrig. Yeah. Who comes in and plays.
Never
missed a game. Played 2,130 games straight.
It's the same in the NFL with Brett Favre. He was a backup quarterback, and the all-star halfback went down injured. He's come on and won in the game. Didn't miss a game for the next 17 years.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers just sat behind him year upon year upon year.
And I think the difference, the one that's confusing with the Dragon situation, I understand Craig Bellamy. They're 6 points clear at top of the table. They can rest players.
You can
they've got to win 7 in a row. They can't afford to drop a game.
They've got to win 6 out of 7.
Yeah, you want to be a part of it.
And that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, there's no time to rest, And the pre-season and all that, and I know it's really hard and physical, and I don't want to criticise players, but you prepare yourself to go the distance. That's what pre-season is. If you're lucky enough and the team's in a good situation where you can get a rest, awesome. Where I just think this year, they needed all hands on deck, and I'm not too sure if there's more behind it than we know. But that's the weird one. It was a must-win game on the weekend.
A couple of things, and you really look at what your senior players and your leaders do. Two quick stories here. One was young. I remember Jackson Hastings being a very young player, and I was chatting to him one day, a bit of talk about what are you learning at the Roosters, and what are you learning from Sonny Bill Williams? And he goes, oh, Matty. He goes, you got no idea. He goes, mate. I'll tell you, Sonny, it was about 2/3 of the way through the year, and Sonny, I don't know whether he was coming off Ramadan or what had happened, but he got awfully sick, got really sick. And Robbo said, mate, he won't be playing this week. Didn't train all week. They didn't see him, but he turns up game day. I'm going to do the warm-up. I probably won't play. I'll just see how I feel. So they've named him, but there's no expectation he would play. He said he was so crook he didn't actually do the warm-up. He said he sat with a towel over his head. And he said he's just sitting there. And he said, I walked in, I saw him like that. And he said, that didn't change. He said until about 5 minutes before the game, when he took the towel off, stood up and said, I'm ready to go and play. And he got man of the match. Right. The other one is Paul Harrigan. I used to see Chief, mate, whose back and his knees and everything was shot back in his career. And I'd seen him come off that Origin period, right? This is what he'd do. He'd get to training 2 hours before everyone else. He'd have an hour on the massage table, and for an hour before training, Kenty, he would walk up and slow jog up and down the hill at Marathon Stadium so he could train and so he could be prepared to
get his
play.
body moving. Yeah.
The other one, a story, and this involves a player coming off a rep game, and so this is a dressing room story that I was witness to. Because it's a dressing room story, I'm not going to mention names. Out of respect that it happened within closed doors, and it was a player had played a state of origin, and he comes back to club, and our coach, we're in there, we're all getting strapped, and we're going through a really difficult period with injuries. Got all the young guys making their debut, and we're playing Penrith at Penrith Saturday night. It's July. It's tough, mate. This is a tough time of
the last place in the world you want to
mate, it's going to be a tough one. Hostile crowd, big physical pack. Here we go. Anyway, the player comes in and says, mate, I'm really crook. I've got sore ribs. I'm not going to be able to play. The coach says, no, I need you to play. Yeah, you're playing. And the player says, I'm not playing. I'm too crook. He said, mate, we'll needle the ribs. He said, painkillers don't work with ribs. Mate, I'm not playing. Anyway, the coach went to the strappers, and a lot of the young guys are getting strapped. Leave the room. Johnsy, I want you to stay. You're going to be witness to this. And they started having a conversation. And he said to the coach, I'm not playing. And the coach said, mate, I'm telling you now, you're playing, because if you don't play, you're gone. You're gone. At the end of this year, you're gone from the club. And he said, good luck. I've got a 3-year contract. The player didn't play, and at the end of the year, he was gone. He'd left the club. But that was once the expectation that coaches put on players, and the best players, and your rep players, to say, mate, I need you. Our season's on a knife's edge here. I need you to play.
Yeah, I remember a great story about Freddie when he come across to the Roosters, and then we're talking about a bit later on when he was such a big signing, and they got them back in the semi-final race, and he had really bad groins, Freddie. And he was dusted this one semi-final. I think it could have been against North Sydney maybe, or maybe the Knights. I'm not too sure. And his groins were gone. He had to get needles in between the Shaminda Vast and the Family Jewels.
No man's land.
No man's land.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't seen someone get that needle. I've heard them. Because you can hear them.
And it makes your eyes water just thinking. And then at halftime, and then just to train during the week. And those stories were legendary, and they ended up. I think they got knocked out a week before the semi-finals. Manly, it could have been, might have beaten them. Freddie had an enormous game. He couldn't finish the game because of his groins, and he went straight to hospital after that. He was in a wheelchair for a week.
I remember when Danny Baderis was retiring, we went looking for a story about Bedgie that we already knew all the stories, so we were mining for a story that no one knew, and Joey popped up with a story and
of course
gave him a bit of time. Of course, Joey used to room with him.
Yeah,
but he said that they woke up the morning of the game playing Penrith one day down in Penrith. Woke up morning of the game, and Bedgie couldn't get out of bed. His back had just seized up, and he just said, "Mate, I can't move." So, okay, doctor in, looked at him, mate. I don't know what's happened here. We're going to have to manipulate you and work on you. Anyway, so team meeting. Look, he's not playing. He can't move. Let's get on with it. You're in. You're going to move to here. Off we go. And then just before the game, he'd been worked on all day, and he said, "Look, I think I can get out there and play." So off he goes, man of the match. Just puts him one of those 5-star Danny Baderis games that he's did so often, but just the ability to overcome what he'd been through that day and what his body was telling his body seized up because it had enough. It was just screaming. I just need a rest. But mentally, he got himself there, and I think that's such an important part that's missing in a lot of the game. The game used to thrive on those stories.
And that sets the tone, Kenny, when a leader does that, well, geez, I've got no excuses today.
100%.
Look what he's doing. I go, and probably one of the best I've ever seen, Billy Slater, for how great he was as an athlete and a footy player with his skill. At the end of his career, his shoulder. So when he comes back from that, he had the two injuries with the shoulder. He comes back and does it again. He gets the operation, and the doctor goes, "Mate, we don't think he can play." He goes, "Mate, what if I rehab?" "Mate, I don't think he can play." He goes, "What if I rehab between now and the start of next year's 10 months or the first trial's 8? Do you think I'm ready to go?" "Mate, you can try, but no guarantees." He trained for 9-10 months with no guarantee he'd ever play again. Just so he could give himself a chance to go around again next year for the Melbourne Storm. And that year, obviously, was 2007 year, and that 17, and one of the most dominant seasons ever. And he wins the Clive Churchill and was unbelievable. He trains 10. That's not a week. That's 10 months of training, and your career might be finished. He's had no guarantee of
I
even
know.
playing. Just to play a trial, to run around in a trial to see if he can play again.
And that's rehab training too.
That's
which is the
rehab.
worst kind.
On your own.
yeah.
Out your own. And
That's on rowers. That's all that sort of stuff.
After he's achieved everything. When
Yeah.
he hangs his boots up now, he's probably one of the greatest ever, if not the greatest ever fullback. You know?
What about some of the rehab stories, some of the rehab trainings? Like the Canterbury rehab training was legendary. Remember when Ricky was playing there? They said to him one day, because Ricky wasn't playing, they said, mate, we're playing Canberra. You're gonna ride to Canberra. And he had an accident off the side of the road at Goulburn.
They had to ride to Mittagong, didn't they? The bus would pick him up from Mittagong.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, mate, Mary, Paul McGregor. Mate, I tell you what, Mary, he's been on a roller coaster since the moment he's got this job. He'd be feeling the pinch at the moment. I feel for him, when all of a sudden you've got a coach that's under pressure, and that's part of the job. But at the time, he'd be sitting there at the moment going, all of a sudden now there's these stories coming out that, we're going to do a review at the end of this. And, by the way, before we extended him, mate, we did bump another 14 people about taking his job. You're going, who puts that out there?
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
It's not a
unbelievable.
club acting in solidarity.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I think from Paul McGregor, you can look at it two ways. The fact is, they looked at 14 others and decided he was still the best guy.
Yeah.
Kenty, do you know when there's crisis at clubs from your time, do you think certain clubs have a habit of just circle the wagons, we're sticking together, and other clubs have got a history
very
of
much. Yeah,
just
some
crumbling around and
just
every man for himself?
Yeah, and it changes according to the administration. Some club bosses are very good. Some coaches are very good. Des is great in times of crisis. Des is at his best. Des actually creates a crisis. He actually creates a crisis so he can get them all together. The good ones know how to do it. I've spoken to a few coaches in recent years who have been under pressure at various times. And I've said to them, look, this is going around the game now. And they go, yeah, it's bullshit, mate. Don't worry about it. And I say, look, it might be now, but my experience is that it's like the avalanche. The avalanche begins with a pebble. It starts to roll down, and suddenly, and it comes to a point in all this narrative where you need to get control of it, because if you don't, then you won't be able to have control of it. And Paul McGregor's been pretty good, actually. Paul McGregor fronts up. He answers the questions. He's honest in his, and that's a big way to actually just getting the heat out of it. The coaches that really make the errors, I've found, are the ones who refuse to speak to it. And if you dare bring it up, they get aggressive with you for asking the question, and they will not return calls. They don't want to. And what ends up happening, it just becomes a pressure cooker then, because if you're continually look at Nathan Brown at the beginning of the season, right? Everyone was after him for his job. Brownie did more interviews than anybody, to the point where Brownie wants to come on 360. No, God, we had him on.
We had him early tonight.
Yeah, sure. They've just lost 7 in a row. Yeah, I'll come on.
Yeah. No, but look, it wasn't quite that bad. But he was, every time we called him for an interview, whether we did it on radio, whether we did it on 360, whether it was for the newspapers, whatever, he answered the call or he called you back. And he fronted to it. And what that does is that continually relieves the pressure.
Of course.
Fans just want to know what's going on at their club.
Yeah, they do.
And if you're coming out and you're being honest, and Brownie has been very good through his whole tenure at Newcastle, where he's been able to say, we don't have a squad that's capable of making the finals at the moment. And Knights fans wear that. They know their footy well enough. They look at it, they go, you know what, he's right. Canterbury are the same right now. Canterbury don't have a team that can make the finals.
No.
Canterbury are going to have to go through drastic changes before they are a team that is finals bound. And Dean Pay, the best thing he can do is to continue. And I think Canterbury have been quite upfront about the problems they're encountering as they go through this transition period from old administration to new administration, old coach to new coach, and obviously got to roll the roster over.
Tell you what, Kenty, talking about Canterbury, the best I'd seen, coach I've been coached by, of dealing with pressure was Chris Anderson. When I've seen Apes at different points being under serious pressure. I rang Chris recently because there's a young coach in the game that I could just see from the outside that he was really struggling, with pressure, a lot coming down on him. And I spoke to him one day and I had a chat to him. We just bumped each other and I said, mate, I tell you, it'd be really good for you. I said, have a chat to Chris Anderson. I don't know how he handled the pressure, but however he did, it worked. And I rang Opes and I said, mate, would you reckon you catch up with this? But he said, yeah, I'd happy to have a coffee. And then Opes started talking. And he says, Johns, he said, this is it. it's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game. He goes, mate, it's a game. That's it. You know, mate, are your kids healthy? You know, he goes, mate, real pressure is like, you know, if your kids, you know, got cancer, if your kid's really, you know, sick, that's pressure. Or if, you know, that's what I think sometimes, you know, with coaches, the ones that you really see their eyes are on the back of their head and they're telling everyone how much pressure they're under. Some of their fans who are following them week to week and buy tickets to the game are struggling to make ends meet. Now, that's pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what pressure is.
I look at, when we speak about that, I look at from two Dogs coaches. Chris Anderson, obviously in 95, when the players go everywhere and he keeps them together and they win. And then Steve Folkes with the Coffs Harbour scandal in the start of 04, like that could have been blew the club up.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the inner sanctum there, but I know the result was both years they won the grand final. So
And that's it.
something must have been
And obviously,
done right there.
with some coaches, it must be just something in their personality that just allows them to handle it really
Yeah.
well. You know, when I was working at Channel 9 and every Friday night having to go into the sheds and knock on the winning coach, interview them, great, fantastic, then go to the losing coach and, oh, mate, you know, you'd really see the strain. Like Brian Smith, I used to see the strain on Brian.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying, how you going, mate? And he goes, mate, you know, he admitted to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough.
It is.
Yeah, and that happened. I see that. As you said, I've spoken to coaches this year who at different times that just seem to be struggling a little bit, and you just got to say, look, just keep your head up, and yeah, sometimes you've just got to remind them that, and to your point, that it's just a game, and they don't like hearing that.
No.
But they've got to just find that perspective with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Once you find the perspective with it, that's when it becomes manageable.
Yeah.
And it's the same with any problem. Once you've put it in the perspective of where it is, it's okay. How am I going to deal with it? And that's where you're at.
What's the population of China, by the way?
Oh, it's about 2 billion, isn't it?
When our game becomes their national game and you're a losing coach, that's when you've got problems.
Yeah. Or you're swimming against them.
Mate, that's
Big Mac.
true. What about that? You're mates with Ricky. I think you can call it more than just a professional relationship. You're mates. How have you seen Ricky change over the years, you know, from the initial coach and times during his career being under real pressure to where he is at the moment? It must be a discipline.
Yeah, mate, he learned to ignore the noise very early on. His first years at the Roosters, he wore every insult. He read the newspaper every day.
Yeah. I've had phone calls from him.
Well,
Where he had a few under his belt calling me a and things like that.
yeah, well, but that was the making of our friendship. Seriously,
It was.
that was
We've
it.
all had a few of those phone calls.
Yeah, well, that's where we started. I wrote a story in his first year at the Roosters, and I used to write his column when he was a player at the Raiders back when I was working at the Sun Herald. So we've known each other since the mid-90s, early 90s. But when he took over the Roosters, I wrote a column one day, and he rang up and just blew up. You know, no wonder you never made it.
How personal would he?
I got extremely personal. And look, I'm not a shrinking violet in that area. I said, listen, pull your head in, and we ended up being
Put
on
a
the phone.
pretty good argument, you two.
Oh yeah,
No one's
look,
backing down
look,
there.
for half an hour. It was
You're not listening. No, you're not listening. No, you're not listening.
for half an hour, it was trading insults, and then for the next hour on the phone, we sat down and we found some common ground in how we think, and I, what I said and why I said it and all the rest of it. And from that moment on, we think alike.
Yeah.
We like the same people.
Yeah.
We dislike the same people. Yeah, we just have similar views on life. And early on, so
Give us one person you're both like.
Everyone.
Everyone's not a person, Brett.
And then, so what ended up happening then was, over time, when he started to struggle at the Roosters, I could see that it was getting to him, and then he went through that period, that really tough period at Cronulla. Remember they lost 11 in a row or something like that. And Ricky's problem, like a lot of coaches, I think, was when he was going through a rough trot, he worked harder, worked the players harder.
Yeah.
And there came a point there where we had a yak one day, and he said to me, he was struggling a little bit with just all this stuff going on, and he just needed his focus to come back to it. And what he started to do was he started to realise what was important and what wasn't, and what was what you think. Not everything you think is important is important. And once he figured out the difference between what matters and what really doesn't matter, and that's just external noise. That's just people having an opinion. That's when he started getting around it that way. And look, we all joke about Rick and how cranky he is and what a grumpy he is and all that sort of business. But the fact is, his players love him.
Yeah.
They love playing for him. He is a real man's man that way. He's a coach's player. They like having him there. He's easy to take the piss out of because his emotions are so close to the surface. But once he got past all that and he figured out what mattered and what didn't matter, and I still see coaches these days who just get caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. Look, Anthony Seibold's had a year where he filed a complaint against a journalist who accidentally texted to him rather than another journo.
So talking about Seeb, Senator
Talking
Seeb.
about Seeb.
Oh, the old...
that old doozy.
That old doozy. But the
Cancel.
But it
It's
was
not coming
irrelevant.
back.
It was irrelevant. The one thing, rather than put a complaint in and get the guy suspended for 6 weeks.
Talk to him. Call him.
He should have just rang up and said, listen, mate, come on. And that's sorted out. Because it makes your job, I'll tell you now, whether you like us or not, it's a hell of a lot easier if we like you.
Yeah. I just listened to Josh Hodgson on the weekend. Like, and obviously we joke around. Sticky rode me really hard for the 4 years I was there. Now, the first 2 years when we made grand finals, he was terrific to play under. We had a great relationship. When it was good, it was super. We were very similar, and when we would be, the games would win, we'd be at the bar together. It'd be me and him versus everyone.
You're an old-fashioned.
Yeah,
And
me and him can bicker, but if anyone targets us, we're back at you. And we were terrific.
Yeah.
And it was, and I understand what you're talking about the risk because I was under that pressure as well as the halfback, and me and Sticky probably handled it similar. I could see that how Josh Hodgson spoke about him on Sunday. On your show, just he cares, and that's been his undoing in the past because he's so emotional and he does care.
Yeah.
He doesn't control as much, and I know talking to him when I do a halftime interview, how much he's not matured, but just the experience in being around it. He's a lot more calmer, but you're right. We do take the Mickey out of Stick because he does blow up a bit, but.
Yeah.
Well done to the Canberra Raiders. Last week celebrated the 89 grand final with a lot of class. They did it really well, and the team keeps winning. Talking about Ricky and his Raiders. The Raiders are 2019. They're fourth on the ladder. Being viewed by everyone as, they're a dark horse. They're an outside chance. Is that giving them enough respect? Where do you see them?
No, I think this team, remember 2016, Edric Lee drops the ball.
Yeah.
They're a try. If he doesn't drop that ball, they have every chance of beating Melbourne and going to the grand final. They were on the doorstep, and then they had 2 down years. The way they've bounced back this year, I think they're a big chance. They've got a much more complete team. They've got a much more complete squad. You look at Tarpany, such a key player. He's only played 10 games. The halfbacks have rotated and they're still in the top 4. They're winning games they would have lost the last few years just from being tough and grinding out the 80. They're a good team.
It's really funny. We've touched on the Englishman before, but I've written the article this week about the Raiders. So one of the cornerstones of all their successful eras has been not just recruitment, but clever outside-the-box recruitment.
Yeah.
I'll give you an idea. So they come in the comp in 82, right? I've jotted a bit of this down. I remember being a kid in the schoolyard, hearing, someone saying, I just see what the Raiders got beat by this week in 82. Don't worry, there's karma coming because a bit over 10 years later, they're doing that to us at the Knights. But 82, they come in, they finished last, did it tough. Some of the scores, 44-5, 55-15, 54-3, 61-20. And
in the one season.
In the one season. And the side who comes second last, Illawarra, beat them 45-0. Now, let's remember this. This is the days of the three-point try.
Yeah.
So that year they conceded 862 points. And Don Furner, going into 86, we've spoken to this, he needed the circuit breaker, needed things to change, signs Mal Meninget, changes things straight away. And the big thing he'd allowed to do by signing Mal was tap into the Queensland talent. With Mal comes 2 young brothers, Kevin and Steve Walters, Gary Belcher, Gary Coyne, Peter Jackson, and on Mal's recommendation, they signed as co-coach an unknown coach up there, a young bloke called Wayne Bennett, right? So straight away, they go from those scores, 87, a year after 86, they get Mal, 87, they make the grand final, 89, they win it. And then you go, then the salary cap scores, they win it in 89 and 90. Salary cap scandal, which leads into 92, them losing all these players, including Lazo. So Tim Sheen says, well, Broncos are in these days. We haven't get that automatic talent pool from the best of Brisbane. So he goes New Zealand Pacific nations. Sean Hoppy, Noah Andruku, Ruben Wiki, Quentin Pongia, Johnny Lomax. They win the competition. And then all of a sudden it gets harder for the Raiders. I think no club in the league has been more impacted by expansion than the Raiders. So, Cowboys, Crushers, Titans, Auckland Warriors, Storm in 98. All these teams impact heavily on the Raiders. And that's the reason why they've had a couple of promising times since that 94 year, but mainly hard times. And at that point, I remember a few years ago around those, a lot of people started talking about, maybe it's time for the Raiders to move out of Canberra. There was a bit of that discussion going on. Because, in these days of recruitment managers and these days of being a player manager on every street corner, there's no hidden gems left. Well, there is. They go and find a bloke over at Hull Kingston Rovers called Josh Hodgson, who we hadn't heard of. Yeah. And I would say Hodgson, I don't know what you blokes think, I would put Hodgson second only to Mal Meninga in their most important ever signings because he's allowed them to tap into this English market.
I played against Hodjo over in England when I was at Wigan, and he was a good competitor, and a bit like he said, he was at a real good running game, probably didn't have the finesse or the poise, that touch out of dummy half. But he's come over here, and there's not too many players that come from England to Australia and get better. Not like get better times 10, when the 2 years I was over there, Hull KR were a sort of 6th, 7th, 8th team, middle of the road team. And he's come over here and been a leader at an NRL club and been one of the best hookers, on the top 3 hookers every year he's been.
It was a funny sign because remember they signed him. We knew
went through the door, didn't he?
And then he runs through that door.
Yeah, that's what you want. that's why Sticky would have loved him.
That's our first look at him.
Yeah.
All the public servants going, we've signed that guy.
The team would have been going, new beauty. We've got a good one here.
And we've touched on this before, but it says something about, and I spoke to Craig Johnston just about this. He's highly critical in Soccer Australia of these elite pathways. I said, Jono, tell me about it. And he's talked about his daughter spends all this time driving out to Blacktown, to training sessions. They pay a fortune to this bloke. They got to pay where he said, mate, she should be just down the park back at home, working away. And it says something about our game, Finchy, or where we're at and how we coach through our elite pathways, as they like to call it, that the fact that these English players are coming out here and getting better out here using old school football skills and instincts.
And you're right, you're not going to get too many Greg Inglis's where, you discovered at 16 you're playing for Australia at 18. Yeah. And I think it's in the intangibles which make the difference. This kid works hard. His work ethic's second. And it's the family values or where they come from. You might be 17, but you might be a bit of a big head or a bit of a dickhead. We don't need you. We like this 16-year-old kid who, if you want someone more skillful, you go with him. But if you want someone who's going to stop at nothing to be the best player they can possibly be, then you pick them. And the good clubs, they see the intangibles and pick the right people as well.
I'll get to something on that, Kenty, really quickly. Just touching on the Craig Johnston story. This is one little thing. I'm not giving it in a 2.5-hour interview. This is a little slither. He went to Middlesbrough, right? And Big Jack Charlton, he was 15, Jono. He said, "You are the worst player I've ever seen in my life. Get out." And the rest of the apprentices, and Graham Souness, the great Liverpool, who would eventually get, they hid him away from Big Jack. So Jono, to stay there, would have to clean the boots of all the players and clean the cars, and they'd pay him, and that's why he would pay his way. And he was sleeping in an old coal shed. It wasn't in the digs where all the other apprentices. He said the change come when a new coach come in. Now, he used to go out in the car park, train by himself for 8 hours a day. And they used to call him, mate, they used to say, mate, the wild man from Borneo. They said, mate, he's loopy. And a new coach came in and replaced Jack Charlton and walked into the car park one day and was watching him and said, the bloke said, mate, lunatic from Australia. Do you know he's out there for 8 hours a day, practicing skills? And John Neal go, put him in. Within 2 years, 2.5 years later, he's at Liverpool. Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. That's character.
Yeah. See what the elite pathways, I think, are really poor at developing is resilience.
Yeah.
Because you're kept in cotton wool. As soon as there's an upset in your life,
Yeah.
Everybody rallies around, well, mate, how can we fix it for you? Yeah. Sometimes you've got to say, no, what, mate?
Yeah.
Go and sort it out.
Yeah.
Life's about struggle.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And a lot
It's the
of
most shattering thing I've ever seen. Blake gave me a book on Winston Churchill. I opened up the first page and it said, life's tough.
Yeah.
I went, oh, shit.
Yeah. But a lot of these young kids, they're in the team because they're the biggest and strongest. Now, they're not taught the finer details of the game. They're winning competitions just because they've got the biggest and strongest team.
Yeah.
Now, when everyone catches up, there's no taught on work ethic or selflessness or any of that. That if you don't make league, you can take those characteristics into another occupation.
The 10-metre rule has led to decades of, I think, I won't say lethargy, but laziness in teaching the subtleties of the sport position-wise.
Well, the ball playing's gone right out of it because of that.
Yeah, that's
5-metre rule, you had the ball play.
Just on the Raiders, I heard you over the course of the weekend. Let's talk about some of the unknown great stories in rugby league off that 89 grand final. Give me the crossbar conspiracy. Of course, Benny Elias hit the crossbar in the 89 grand final.
Benny Elias hit the crossbar. It goes over. He wins the game, and Benny's right in front.
So what's the score and how long to go roughly?
I think at this stage it was 14-alls.
14-8.
So they're up by 6.
Sorry, 14-8. They're up by 6. That gives them a 7-point break. He misses. He hits the crossbar. Ball bounces back. Canberra end up score through Chicka Ferguson, goes into extra time. They win in extra time. But I was at a function a couple of years back, and John McIntyre, the old chairman of the Raiders, comes up and says, "Can I tell you a story I've never told anyone?" I'm a Jurdo. I love that.
Yeah, I know. Oh, look, I
elevate,
please. So off he goes, and he said to me, "Look, when we were putting together the training centre down here at Canberra one day." He said they're putting it all together and they're fixing up the field and all the rest of it. He said the bloke put up the posts and he said as he's put the posts up, he's sort of figuring out, well, hang on, how high does the crossbar go? So he said, how high do I make this? And McIntyre said, mate, I got no idea how high a crossbar. He said, ring the football stadium, ask them how high their crossbar is and make it that high. So that's what he did. So they put it up, rang up, it's this high, off you go. He said, mate, we didn't realise until years later, he said, we had that crossbar 2 inches too high. He said, the one at the stadium was 2 inches higher than it should have been. Now,
I can hear Benny Elias. I knew it.
Oh, mate.
So 2 inches higher than the actual...
Then it actually should have been. Then it should have been. So if it's 2 inches lower,
it goes over.
Benny's ball goes over.
The rest is history.
You and this is coming, that.
But this is coming from a Canberra guy. Yeah. You wonder whether he's just trying to inflict a little bit more pain in them.
I've got a theory. Okay, let's just, for the next minute or two, let's just hypothetically, if Balmain had won that grand final 15 points to 14, how does that change history? Put it this way, Steve Roach could be the boss of Fox Sports. Is that outrageous?
I tell you what, that would be a fun thing.
I'd like to know what happened to Benny. Because Benny's worth a squillion now. Benny would
be president. He'd be president.
He'd be President Elias of Australia.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you
man. I tell you what, Ricky could be a gabba.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
I tell you what, he'd give plenty of people a serve on the streets.
Excuse me, you haven't picked up my bins this morning. Go yourself. Boys, sorry about that. You like that one? What am I doing? I've just lost where I'm at. Totally, mate. Finchy, you said it last week. A few blokes bumped me. They said, mate, how isn't it bizarre? The morning of the 2003 grand final, when I said, did you have a feeling that shock loss to the Panthers? You woke up straight away the morning of the game. You said,
I walked out. So I used to stay at an old place called the Ezron Hotel. It was a rundown older place in Randwick, and just walked outside at 8 to 7 o'clock in the morning. Just went.
It's a losing day.
It just had an eerie feel about it. Just the whole day. It was a real overcast, dark day and wet day, and it had a feel just like in my last grand final at against Parramatta for Storm. I just knew we were going to win.
Mick Ennis and Luke Lewis were on the bus to the grand final, and Luke Lewis was saying how nervous he was on the bus, just sitting there. And he looked at Mick Ennis, and Mick Ennis just said, "Mate, don't worry, we'll win today." He just had that feeling.
We did a meeting We went down to Sydney the day before the 97 grand final, had the big send-off in Newcastle, went down, and our eyes, when we went down the meeting just after lunch, our eyes were still spinning a little bit, were still buzzing from the bus trip and all the excitement. And it was pretty ordinary. Most meetings are pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
I remember we were having dinner and there were blokes skipping off to different places and whatnot and going to dinner, going to movies. And Chief said, Chimpy, I just reckon we haven't nailed down the meeting. And I went, Chief, mate, we've had millions of meetings. He goes, no. He goes, mate, just scatter around the boys straight away after dinner. He said, mate, make it 7 o'clock. We're going to have another meeting in the room. No coaching staff, just the players. Okay, no worries. And, mate, it was amazing. That's where we won the game. Yeah. He went in and Chief just got up and spoke and he said, let's go around the room and I want every person to talk about what it will mean to you to win the grand final. And blokes are speaking really, really good, but the last person I got to was Mark Glanville. Now, Mark Glanville was, I think, just about the first ever player the Knights had signed. He had a wretched run with knee injuries out of Australian schoolboys at the Dragons at St George, and they signed him. And so it was his last ever game with the Knights after 10 years at the club. And it got to him, and Mark Glanville's really funny, and he won't mind me saying this. He used to say to us, mate, if you didn't get paid, I wouldn't play.
Yeah.
Like he was
People say they'll play for nothing.
Yeah, and that for us, like these days, people might say, well, that's not unusual. But back then, in our team, we'd be like, what?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, he was just a cold, hard professional. And Chief left it to Mark Glanville last, and he went, MG, and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and there's nothing. And we all turned around, and he's in tears. And Joey just jumped up and said, mate, we've got this. And
Yeah.
What about Des on Monday? The old Des is back, flying under the radar. Des is a big test playing Melbourne this week, and where he is at? Oh, guys, look, there's only 3 teams that can win this competition. That's it. It's how good.
Maxi Krilic has come out in the paper today. It started, hasn't it? He's in
what a game this is for Manly.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He'll have them right up.
You will.
They will
Sky high.
Sky high, yeah.
And what will decide this game, Finchy, as you know, we've spoken about Melbourne before. Melbourne got the ability to turn the strength of a team into a weakness. Can they control Tom Trbojevic? Geez, watching him last week, and we've all know he's got those great attacking instincts. He's athletic. He's got all these gifts. But, mate, his smarts last week against Parramatta. Young Fainu and dummy half. All of a sudden, Tom's tipping him how to split the markers and he's putting Tom away. It was a masterclass.
There were a couple of things I think Melbourne want to do to control Tom. You've seen Tom under the high ball. Now, Pappenhausen and Jerome Hughes, the two, they're not the tallest.
They're not.
Yeah. So I think a big one is going to be their dominance with their defence. Now, the difference in kicking the ball from your own 40 where you've just really you can't aim for anywhere, you just got to drive it, hit it as longer and hard as you can. Then if you can get an extra 10 metres to the halfway, all of a sudden you can drill it in the corner, you can launch one up, you can sort of start placing the kick where you want. So stopping Manly's go forward and taking Tom out of the kick chase, that will be one. And where they finish the sets, it will be a big one for Melbourne.
Penrith play this week, looking at 8 in a row. Geez, that's crept up. A few things crept up. Penrith, as I said, 8 in a row. The other one is Broncos and Warriors, 1 point out of the 8.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? How'd that happen? But Penrith...
And the good news, Matt, is if we go to a top 10 like the NRL want, they'd actually be in the final.
Yeah.
Can you believe?
1-6, lost 12. Yeah. You're in.
You're in.
Won't happen, surely.
Hope not.
Couldn't happen. We don't make silly decisions in this game. Mate, what about the Roosters? They're $3 at the moment. I reckon that's overs. I'd even bet $2.50. Jake Friend's a big loss. Interesting what it'll do there. Be interesting that one because do they put Radley straight away into 9 or do they put young Verrills? Because Radley's worth 13.
He's a ball player for you, isn't he? He's another string in your attack. The Roosters have got a gear that no other team has.
No.
The Roosters' best is the best in the competition.
Yep.
Now, I was watching them last week, and I've done a few games this year, and I think they know that. So it's like we can press the button anytime we want. So that can create a bit of inconsistency because they know they can.
That's right. But Cooper Cronk touched on it your show.
Well,
do we know we're off the base? Yep. Do we know we can get it right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do.
And Robbo was saying
Got to stop asking yourself questions, by the way.
Yeah. He loves it.
He loves it. Yeah.
Because he's the only one smart enough to ask himself questions.
and get the right. I ask myself,
is this jumper too tight on me?
I ask myself questions, I just answer it wrong. But Robbo knows that you see getting the balance between setting the base before but you want to encourage the attack. But But their best is better than anyone else's in the comp. They, obviously they haven't done it consistently enough compared to the Storm, but mate, they've got a gear in them. And that offense, when they press the button, no one can go with them. They're scary.
On the Roosters, let's just, boys, to finish up this today. Just quickly to a shout out to Beer, Footy and Food Festival at Henson Park Saturday. Newtown Jets versus Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. If you're an old school rugby league person like we are that loves the old, I went there 6 weeks ago to watch the South Sydney Reserve grade play Newtown. What a feel there! Yeah. It was so good. I was sitting there, I was in hog heaven. It was me, Joey, the old man, and Johnny Lewis. Yeah. And
planes go over the top. You can't hear each other talk.
There's some characters there too.
I was there 3 weeks ago against Saints.
It's good, isn't it?
It's unreal.
Henson Park Hotel.
Can't remember getting home.
No, can't you?
That's how good it was.
So much excitement. Let's do this, boys. Season so far. Give me your best player, 1, 2, and 3. I'll lead off. 1 point, Damien Cook. 2 points, Cameron Smith. 3 points, James Tedesco.
Yeah, I've gone. I'll say 1, 2. I was gone. Munster Pearce, 1 point.
Yep.
2 points, Tedesco. 3 points, Smith.
Yeah, I like Tedesco as my 3. Pearce 2 and Smith 1.
Righto, what about the coaches? 1 point, Ricky Stewart. 2 points for me is Craig Bellamy. 3 points, Des Hasler. How he's got him firing.
Yeah, I've gone Wayne and Desi, a point. Robbo, 2 points. Craig Bellamy, 3 points.
Yeah, I think Des has had the biggest surprise for the season. I think you've got to give him your 3. I think Ricky, a lot of people are writing him off saying this year he's going to be sacked. So he's sitting there in top 4 at the moment, 2 points, and then Bellamy's just a freak.
And it's right, Tash, you had on Robbo there. You've got to give Robbo credit. You talk about, mate, the best sides have got the big personality.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's managing that success.
And the pressure and great rosters don't translate into great teams, you know. Yeah. And you look at his record there. He's won 2 comps. He's finished minor premiers 3 or 4 times.
4 times. Yeah.
Like, and he's had that one poor year they missed. It's ridiculous. And you're right. Like the old saying, a champion team won't beat a champion team will beat a team of champions. And how he's moulded that team together and keep everyone happy year after year is a fantastic effort. He's a super coach, Robbo.
I'll tell you how clever he is. During that early period with that really bad year in 2016, I think it was, about 7 rounds, 8 rounds in, they were going like bastards. And I was talking to him, and I said to him, you know, what's going wrong? Everyone wanted to know what was wrong. What's going wrong there? Like, your minor premiers the year before. What's happened? And he said, look, we needed to have a bad year. He said, just with where their salary cap was, they needed to turn some players over. He said, I said to Nick, we're going to have a bad year this year. They didn't anticipate on Mitchell Pearce being suspended, obviously, which doubled up their problems. He said, I said to Nick, we'll have a bad year. He said, I still thought we could make the semis, or still think we can make the semis, he said at the time. He said, trust me. He said, mate, we'll be in position to win it next year. Yeah. And I thought he's nuts.
Yeah, right? You told me that, and I thought, I don't see it.
Yeah.
And they come 3rd and then won it the year after.
They finished minor premiers the year after. Yeah, well, equal first, I think it was. Yeah. And then won it the year after that. It was just magnificent.
Yeah. Question, will he be the Roosters coach, say, in 12 years' time still?
Yes.
If he wants to, yeah, I think so.
I think he will, mate. He's got that. So this is the other thing. You would know this, and you'd know this. Some coaches have an ability to wear thin on the playing group.
Of course they do.
He don't.
He doesn't. They're still fascinated by him. He's got the ability to just pull out of the...
I was going to say, he manages his presence very well.
Yes.
He does. Question to finish with. Will this podcast be still here?
No.
I would say no, definitely.
I won't be if it is.
Hopefully we're still live, though, gentlemen. But thanks, boys.
Thank you, Matthew. Well done, Kenny.
This has been a Fox Sports production.